So I'd like to start by asking everyone to participate in an activity. Raise your hand if you have driven or been driven somewhere in the last 10 days utilizing a GPS system. Now, keep your hand up if that GPS was used to take you to a place that you have been before. Everyone with their hand still up is participating in what is called cognitive offloading. And in simple terms, this is making you dumber. So, what is cognitive offloading and how exactly is it making us dumber? Well, cognitive offloading is defined as the use of physical or external tools in a manner that reduces the cognitive demand on the mind, therefore making it easier to perform. The issue with this is when we over-rely on these tools, because on its own, cognitive offloading could be things as simple as taking notes in class or using a calculator to do math. But when we over-rely on these tools, we are eroding critical mental capabilities by refusing to engage our minds with these tasks. This is something that has always been an issue, but it has become increasingly common in recent times. For example, 40 years ago, when calculators were first introduced to school systems, people were worried that calculators would make students worse at math. Studies have time and time again shown that students who over-rely or have early exposure to calculators have worse number sense, slower mental math capabilities, and altogether oftentimes lack the ability to perform complex equations without the use of a calculator. 15 years ago, when internet research became more common than physical books or going to libraries for research, people were worried that the use of the internet would make our research or memory retention abilities worse. And studies have shown that this is also true. The phenomenon is referred to as digital amnesia, which is when individuals forget information that is readily available online. And this is actually a part of the larger issue known as transactive memory, where individuals forget information itself, but remember how to access the information, creating a reliance on the source where it is from, because every time you need it, you have to go back to that source. And even in recent times, with artificial intelligence, people have worried that over-reliance on AI may cause a decline in mental capabilities. And until recently, there has been nothing to support this. But a recent MIT study has actually shown that regular users of ChatGPT have overall worse memory, slower cognition abilities, and less brain activity compared to non-users. In hearing all of this, it's easy to become concerned and think, if these are all things that are already common in society or becoming more common, what can we do to stop the negative impacts that it is having on us? And there's actually two main methods. The first is active defense. This is the reliance on traditional methods that engage the brain instead of the usage of cognitive tools. While the second is proper tool usage, because these tools are helpful, which is why we need to learn how to use them properly. Now, starting with active counters. The first and most important active counter is self-awareness and metacognition. This is because it allows you to assess how you perform tasks and what areas you're weak in. The most important aspect of metacognition is self-regulation, which is defined as the proactive assessment of a task before performing it, and then the self-assessment of the task while performing it. This allows you to see exactly what areas you need work in and further improve upon them. The second active counter is the use of dual channeling. Dual channeling is when we use the visual and verbal sides of our brains together. For context, the brain is split into two sides, the visual and the verbal. Individually, these are incredibly powerful in their specialties, but they are limited in their capabilities and their range. When used together, they are able to be more effective and also create stronger mental connections. A great example of dual channeling is in history, where you may see a portrait or an image of a historical figure along with information on why they are relevant to the current era or important achievements that they have made. This forces stronger bonds in the brain related to that figure. Another form of dual channeling is time chunking. This is when you take large tasks or assignments and split them into relatively even amounts of time and perform the tasks in the areas which are related together. This allows you to go through it quicker. This also allows you to be more efficient with the work as you are assessing the areas that are related to each other instead of taking it on all together. Another important method of active counters is the use of spaced repetition. This is when you assess information in intervals of layered time related to the memory window. Spaced repetition places newer information at the starts in more stacked sessions, while older information starts to disappear but reappears around the window where you would forget it. This strengthens your overall memory core by forcing it to engage with information over time. Another important active counter is active recall. Active recall is when you pull information in context where it is relevant. This involves things like fill-in-the-blank exercises, flashcards, or even multiple choice quizzes in class. And the final method, which is one of the most effective, is the use of interleaving. Interleaving is when you take information that is related but would often be presented separately and you review all of it together. This not only strengthens your skills in performing those tasks or remembering that information, but also allows you to quicker identify and assess connections in real-world context. Now, on to proper tool usage, because these tools are important, so we need to know how to use them properly. Proper tool usage will not only make you more effective than individuals who rely on traditional methods, but it also protects your mental capabilities that those who use tools improperly erode. The first step of proper tool usage is actually utilizing one of the active counters, and this one is metacognition. In the context of proper tool usage, we are using metacognition to assess whether the tool is necessary to use or not. Because if the tool isn't necessary to use, no matter what steps you take while using it, you cannot be using it properly. So if you assess yourself and you identify the tool as necessary to use, the next step in proper tool usage is reviewing how you use it and not blindly following the tool. Because I'm sure all of us have been led to the wrong place by a GPS, or seen misinformation online, or even been lied to by AI hallucinations. These are all examples of negative impacts of not assessing the tools when using them. Studies have also shown that individuals who engage in critical thinking when using cognitive tools to perform tasks are able to more regularly identify, override, and redirect improper usage, overall making the tools more effective than otherwise. And the final step of proper tool usage is to guide the tool, because at the end of the day, cognitive tools are just like any other traditional tools. For example, a shovel. When you are using a shovel, you do not place the shovel on the ground and ask it to dig for you. You take the shovel and you dig with it. This is the same with any cognitive tool. You have to guide it to enhance your performance of the task instead of relying on it to perform the whole task for you. Because these tools are innovative and they are important to building a better future for ourselves. But if we use them improperly, we risk eroding the very things that bring these changes around, and that is our minds, one of the most important aspects to a better future. So I encourage all of you to take small and actionable changes that lead to larger and greater changes. And you can start by performing small exercises. A great example of this is on your drive back home from this event. When you're in the car, think and ask yourself if you really need to use the GPS.